Yeah, they say people who start sentences with "so," that's a terrible thing to do. I got to figure out how to get rid of that habit. What I like, or what, no, let's say it this way: why I like Tesla full self-driving. I'm an '80s kid. I was born in 1970. My teenage years were spent in the 1980s. I went through, I got my first computer was a Timex Sinclair ZX81 that I got for $100 from Venture, and I learned to code back when I was actually about 8 years old. I learned to code early on an Apple II. We had one in our whole school, and I got to use that. So anyway, my point is that I'm an '80s kid, part of early PC computer revolution, and that's important because I see Tesla full self-driving. My excitement for Tesla full self-driving is the same as my excitement was back in the early '80s, late '70s with personal computers. I remember the first time I used an Apple II, the first time I wrote basic programming. I remember that excitement. I remember that, it wasn't so much the excitement of what I was doing at the time, it was the excitement about the potential for what I could do and what could be done with the computer. And my imagination just went wild. And that is exactly the same enthusiasm and excitement I have for Tesla full self-driving. And a lot of people get confused on, I guess why I'm excited about full self-driving. And it's so I got to actually take a step back. It's not it's not full self-driving. It's not that fact that the car is driving itself. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's Knight Rider, right? If you're in the '80s, you know what that is. That's exciting. Okay, it's the way they're doing it, and that's why Tesla full self-driving is so fun. The Waymo is just not exciting to me. I think it's great, but it's just not that exciting to me. It's Wayve. I think they're pronounced Wayve, and Tesla with the whole end-to-end neural network. And more importantly, it's the way they're developing it, the way they're training it as opposed to programming it. That is exciting because, like I said, back when I was younger, it was the fact that I could program this computer to solve problems for me. That's what was so exciting. It wasn't the computer itself, it wasn't the PC, it wasn't all that. It was this idea that I could give this thing instructions, and later on, it would use those instructions to solve problems. Now, fast forward now, and what Tesla's doing with the end-to-end neural network and their full self-driving is they're solving one of the most complex problems that we have in the physical world, which is driving. There are other bigger, more complex problems, but this one's pretty self-contained. And they're solving that without programming. They're solving that with training. And that paradigm shift is the next step from when I was a kid back in the early '80s, early '90s, where I saw programming as a tool to change the world. Now I see training an AI as a tool to change the world. And that's incredibly exciting. There's, and I don't think people really understand how big of a fundamental change that is to how the world works right now. I just watched a show yesterday, there's 18 million programmers. Programming is a foundational aspect of our society right now. Solving problems, having a computer solve problems for us is something that we depend on, and programmers are what enable that computer to solve problems for us. But now we're saying, you know what? We don't need the programmers anymore. We're going to train the computer directly to solve problems for us. And I just can't begin to tell you how exciting that is. And it might, if you're not a programmer, if you're not a software engineer, it may not seem like such a step change. But if you are in the industry, you understand how fundamentally different things are going to be when the software, when Tesla figures out how to do this, solve this complex of a problem using pure training, it's going to trickle down. It's going to trickle everywhere, and it's going to be just a step change in the way we do things in the world and everything. And you could see, you know, it opens up the door where right now, if I want a computer to do something for me, I need to write code, which means I have to have the skills to write code. But we're already seeing where AI will enable the ability for people who don't write code, who can't write code, to get the computers to do things for them. So you just it just opens up, not only for me, but it opens up the power of the computer for many more people. Now everyone uses computers right now, but there's a difference between using a computer and using and modifying a computer to do exactly what you want. There's a difference between that. So you're given a black box that someone else has programmed to do what they think you want to do, versus a black box that you're given that you're going to train to do what you want to do. There's a fundamental difference there. And again, this whole experiment with Tesla full self-driving, this is proof. If Tesla can get this working, which, I mean, well, should seem like it's working to me, but if they can get this working and finally and get the person out of the, make it unsupervised, which they've already done in at least some examples, but if they can get that to become the norm, become accepted, then the floodgates open. And I think it's going to obviously have a huge impact on transportation. There's no question. Unsupervised FSD is just going to fundamentally change transportation. It's going to change how we design buildings and parking lots, because do you need as many parking spaces if you can send the car somewhere else? So you can see how now I can have an office building and I don't have to really worry about parking. As long as there's parking within X number of miles, I can just have the employees send their car to that parking lot. So the whole infrastructure, how we build buildings, how we allocate land, all that can change. Handicap spots. Right now you have a handicap spot. Well, you need a handicap spot if the handicapped person can send his car to anywhere, right? Car drops them off right in front. They get out, go in, and the car goes and parks itself, and then they call the car later on. I mean, there's so many side effects that people don't realize. People hear full self-driving, and the biggest comment I get is, I can drive the car myself. I can think for myself. Okay, that's extremely short-sighted. I mean, that's very narrow-minded, and I understand some people just aren't all that imaginative. Let's just use that word. So but if you just think about it for more than a reactive second, you realize that there's so much more potential to self-driving than just I can drive myself. I can think for myself. No, you could, again, your car could drive you to work in the morning, and you could send your car back home. Now your wife doesn't need a second car. She has the car to do whatever she wants. I guess I'm being nuclear family here. Then your wife or husband can do whatever they want. Now it begs the question: if you have a fully autonomous, unsupervised, self-driving car, do you need two cars? Maybe not. That's another. And then the other exciting thing too is for just things like grocery shopping and stuff like that. I mean, right now, if I go to Walmart or my grocery store, they'll come out and load the car for me, so I can pull up into Walmart or I can pull up into Mariano's, and they'll just load the car for me. Well, with fully autonomous, unsupervised, I could just send my car to the grocery store. They load up the car, and the car comes home. And then you beg to differ. Well, wait a minute. Why do I even need to own the car? What if the grocery store just owned a small fleet of cars, and you just called up and said, "Hey, just deliver the groceries here," and they just sent one of their cars? The potential for the potential for the technology is much bigger than most people imagine. And especially with a generation that doesn't necessarily want to own cars and doesn't necessarily want to drive cars. And honestly, I can fully respect that. I'm not a big fan of owning cars. I mean, I love my Teslas, don't get me wrong, but I would much rather only have one Tesla than two. You know, I have to have two because my wife needs a car and I need a car. So, but there's a lot, you know, neither one of my kids want to own cars if they don't have to. They're, you know, in their 20s. So this next generation is just the prime generation. I mean, Tesla really nailed the timing because, you know, again, when they get unsupervised FSD and people don't need to drive as much, and you can get robotaxis in. Oh, this is interesting. Perfect. Good job, car. She's nailed that. I got to tell you, and last year, when we went to, so it would have been last June, when we went to the event, the Tesla Muskegon event, she couldn't do that. She had all kinds of problems with lanes that were closed, and I think in every case I had to disengage. Since then, she's just been handling it perfectly. Oh, anyway, so what I was saying was this generation who don't want to own cars, the Robotaxi is going to be the perfect answer to that. I could definitely see both my kids would gladly not own a car if they knew that they could get a Robotaxi whenever they need it. Right? Okay, what the hell are you doing? Oh, you're getting off here. Oh, okay. A lot of times I don't really know exactly. I don't know how to get to a location. So in this case, I gotta go get some blood drawn. I have no idea how to get there. I just dialed in the address, and I haven't even thought about it. But yeah, so that's why this passion I have for this technology is, and the fact that it's for Tesla's specific technology. I don't have this same passion for Waymo. Waymo's, you know, just you throw a thousand programmers in a room and you get Waymo. Okay, great, yeah. That's not a fundamental change in technology. It's not a step change. This is a step change. The Tesla, and again, Wayve approach. I give Tesla credit because I'm in a Tesla, but it was actually the guy who started Wayve. It was actually his PhD thesis as the you know, pure neural net approach to driving, to self-driving. Look, bottle bouncing around down there. Oh, come on, park. Oh, you can do it. You're so close. See, she wants to go in reverse. You can see the blue line going back. But the mean people at Tesla won't let her go in reverse for some reason. Okay, we're just going to take over. Unfortunately, she still needs help in some parking lots. Sometimes she nails it, other times no such luck.